Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey all, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is a listener question, and this question is from a listener whose 8-year-old daughter hates school. And I know some parts of the country you're going back to school now. In my neck of the woods, it's not for a few weeks. But we are all getting ready to start that season again. So I thought that this would be a good question to answer. If you have a question for me, you can either find a place to leave the question on my website under the podcast tab. That's sarahrosensweet.com/podcast. Or you can find that in the show notes and you can leave me a question. So let's listen to this mama's question first.
Good morning. How can I encourage my daughter? She's in grade 3. She's 8 years old. She hates school. She would do anything, even sacrifice a special outing to get out of going to school. She doesn't see the point of going to school, says it's too easy, boring, a waste of time. She'd rather be home with me all day. Being a solo mama, I don't find homeschooling being an option. Teachers tell me she gets along with everyone, does great in school, and she is very smart, and school is a breeze for her. I almost have to force her to the bus in the morning. I have to peel off her little fingers off of mine. Or most times she just storms back in the house angry, not wanting to go back to school. I'm tired of this morning routine. What can I do to help her?
Oh man, I just can hear in your voice, listener, how hard this is for you and how terrible you feel for your daughter. And yeah, just like so many hugs going out to you. It's such a hard position to be in when you see your child suffering and struggling. So I'm so glad that you left me this message, and let's see what we can do. I also, I want to answer your question, not just the things that you've brought up in your question, but for anyone whose child hates school. Let's try to see if we can get to the bottom of what's going on for your daughter, and also for any other listeners who might be dealing with a kiddo who doesn't like school. So the first thing we really want to do here is we want to troubleshoot. We want to try and figure out, why does your child hate school? You said that your daughter says that it's too easy and it's boring, and we're going to get to that. But, there's kind of a checklist that we can go through of some reasons that I see in my work and what the research tells us about kids and school avoidance and why they don't want to go to school. One thing that you want to look at pretty carefully, and I don't think this is the case in your case, but it might be for some of our other members of our community, is your child struggling in school? Do they have any undiagnosed learning disabilities, processing speed, possibly dyslexia, anything like that could be making learning challenging for them and making them feel like a failure. And of course, who wants to go someplace every day where they feel like a failure? So I would really look at, if they're having any academic troubles. And that's something that you can talk to the teachers about. Maybe they're teachers from past years. This is just really something that you want to get on board with the teacher and really discuss with them if there may be any academic troubles going on. Also, sort of similarly to that, is it possible they have any undiagnosed or neurodivergence? Maybe they have ADHD and that makes learning difficult because they can't focus. Maybe they have ADHD and that makes learning difficult because they can't sit still in order to focus and learn. So there could be different things that could be contributing to making the learning atmosphere difficult for them, which of course would make them not want to go to school. So that's the first thing I would look at. Another thing that I would look at is, are they having any social problems? That could be maybe they don't feel like they fit in, maybe they don't have any friends, or maybe they're being bullied. And again, why would you want to go to a place where you felt lonely every day and somebody was being mean to you? So talk to your child, and I would I would not stop at talking to your child. And again, teachers, I hope you don't mind that I'm asking you to be an ally here, but I would talk to your child's teacher and ask them, do they seem to have friends? Are they liked? And listener, you who called into me, you said that the teacher said that your daughter is liked by people and that she gets along with everyone. So it's wonderful that you've already taken that step and talked to your child's teacher about how she seems at school. And again, for her, it doesn't seem like an issue maybe that social problems are happening. Although, just because she gets along with everyone, you may find out, does she have friends? Like you didn't mention that. Does she have friends that she looks forward to seeing at school? I know that 2 of my kids really loved the social part of school, and that was enough to get them there. They really like the social aspect. So I would maybe, even though you said the teacher said she gets along with everyone, I would maybe dig a little bit deeper and just see, okay, maybe she gets along, but she doesn't have a friend, like a close friend. And maybe there's, something you can look at there. Or maybe she might get along with everyone, but there could be one person who's not being kind to her. So I would look at that social arena, because, who wants to go someplace where they're not enjoying themselves even a little bit? I would also look at, and for some people, I know that you don't have a choice of schools. Some people do, so I'm going to mention this. Is the school a good fit for your child? There may be kids that are, more active, and the school is, doesn't have a lot of opportunities for them to move their bodies. Or there may be a school that's really, really seriously academic focused and high pressure, and that's not a great fit for your child. So I would look at the school if there's any choice. I would look at, is the school a good fit for my child? Possibly you could change schools if it's not a good fit. One thing you specifically said, listener, was that your daughter complains that school is too easy. And while I wouldn't say that a kid who's bright and finds work too easy exactly in academic trouble, an academic struggle, I would say that in terms of equity, kids who are at either end of the spectrum in terms of being more academically gifted or having some struggles academically, each of them deserves to have their needs met. And I know that's really tough, and teachers do the best they can. And I'm not saying that, the teacher's not doing a good job, but it's possible that the grade 3 curriculum is just too easy for your daughter. So I would again talk to the teacher and see if, and teachers who are listening, if you have any ideas for me, send them in, shoot me an email, let me know if you have any ideas for, how you are able, what things that you find that you're able to do to support students that I haven't covered, because I would love to learn those from you. So if your daughter is, academically not being challenged and the work is too easy, I know some people that I've worked with have talked about how the teacher lets their child work on independent projects or brings in things to read after they're done the work that everybody else is doing. I remember that my son, when he was in grade 6, he was very advanced in math, and his teacher let him do different math than the rest of the class was doing because he had learned that math a few years ago. So for your daughter, how can you work with her and the teacher to maybe make school a little bit more interesting and not so easy for her? Because as I said, at any end of the continuum for whether a child needs more support or less support, more challenge or less challenge, ideally their needs should be met. And that includes kids who are at the end of the spectrum where school is easy for them and they get bored easily. We don't want anyone to be bored, right? If after doing this troubleshooting and investigation, you realize your child does have some academic challenges or the teacher thinks they might, hopefully you can pursue an evaluation through your school, if possible, and get some support for your child around that. Maybe that's sort of obvious, but if you do find that you think they may have, some ADHD or learning disability that's getting in the way of them being successful at school, hopefully you can address that. If you do find that there are some social problems happening, that they don't have any friends, one thing that I found teachers were often willing to do was do a little bit of matchmaking in the classroom. Maybe if there's a project and the teacher thinks there's another child in the class that they might, be a possible friend, the teacher could put them together. And I don't mean to lean too heavily on teachers, but often they are really good observists of kids in the classroom and may have some ideas for you. And because teachers really want kids to do the best they can also and to be happy in the classroom. And it could be also that your child needs a little bit of help in that social skill learning. I know there are lots of books that you can access about making friends and being a friend, and some kids are really naturals at that, and other kids need to be explicitly taught some social skills like how to join in on play and how to be a good friend and what to look for in a friend. So those are some things that you could really work on if you do find that there are challenges in either of those areas. I think another thing that I want to mention is sometimes kids just like to be at home and they're homebodies. So I have 2 suggestions for that. It sounds like your daughter, is really attached to you and loves being at home. So 2 things that I think could be helpful in that area. One is, if this is at all possible, and I know this might not be possible for all working parents, but if it's at all possible, one thing that we found worked so well with my middle son, you may have heard me mention this before, he really put up a fuss about going to school starting in kindergarten. And so we worked out a deal that if he went to school without a fuss, and of course he could be unhappy about it, but he couldn't refuse and kick and scream and say he wasn't going, he could have 1 home day every month. And if he had, so he could take a day off and he could stay home with me. That's why I said this might not work for all parents. If you're working and you can't take a day off, maybe it could be an afternoon. But he had his home day every month. That was the deal, that if he went to school willingly, he could take off a day, any day he wanted. And that actually continued, pretty sure, through grade 5 or 6, that he had a home day every month, that he could just stay home. And I just told his teachers he's taking his home day, mental health day today, because he just needed that. And that really helped him to be able to go to school every day. So that's something you might want to consider. Another thing that you can consider, which is a daily practice, is something that's called bridging the separation. So rather than trying to get your daughter excited about what's going to happen at school, talk to her about when you're going to see each other again. Because it may be just saying goodbye to you is hard, and really let her know, I know you don't want to go, darling. Of course, lots of empathy. We always give lots of empathy when our kid's upset about anything. I know you don't want to go to school. At the same time, remember, at the same time, not but, because but erases all the empathy you just said. At the same time, I need to go to work and your job is going to school and you need to go to school. You know what, though? When I pick you up at 4 or whatever time you're going to see her again, have something for her to look forward to. That's bridging the distance between when you're going to be, when you say goodbye and when you're going to be together again. That's something I learned from Deborah McNamara. So think about, how can you bridge that separation? How can you build a bridge between the times you're going to be together again over the time when you're going to be separated? Something to look forward to, something you're going to do together. Really, that connection piece. How can you make her feel confident in your connection that you're going to see her at 4 at the end of the day? So those are 2 things that might help with that not wanting to go to school a little bit. The thing that I haven't mentioned is anxiety. Very often, anxiety, and even if the child isn't aware that it's anxiety can be behind not wanting to go to school. And I often hear, it's boring. I don't want to go because it's boring. And you did say that your daughter said it was boring. We don't know if it's boring because she's not being challenged. We don't know if it's boring because she doesn't have a strong social network. But boring is sometimes code word for it makes me feel anxious. So I'm not going to get a lot into anxiety in this podcast because I really want to keep it focused on sort of troubleshooting when kids don't want to go to school. But anxiety is often a reason why kids don't want to go to school. This is the thing though. If it was anxiety, I'm fairly certain that you would see it showing up in other areas besides just not wanting to go to school. Are there other things that your daughter avoids or that make her feel anxious? Does she sleep alone? Will she go to the bathroom by herself? Does she show separation anxiety in any other areas? Those are the kinds of things that you want to look at. Let's look at the full big picture. And if you don't see anxiety in any area and she just says she hates school, I would think that it's one of the things that I've already talked about. But if you do say, oh yeah, she won't go to the bathroom by herself, then I think that it could be a strong possibility that it's anxiety. A really, really great place to start with anxiety, if you think that's what it is to go to a blog post that I wrote. If you Google my name, Sarah Rosensweet, and anxiety, you will get it. It's called How My Daughter Learned to Sleep Alone Again, or something like that. And it's a really good overview of the approach that I follow and teach about anxiety that I learned from Len Lyons. Len Lyons, who's been a multi-time, I think 3-time guest on the podcast, so y'all are probably familiar with her. Her book, Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents, is a really great place to start after I've got a link to it actually in the blog post. We'll also link to Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents in the show notes. But if it's anxiety, then you've got a project, and that project is going to be teaching her about her brain, how anxiety works, and coaching her to be able to tell herself that it's a false alarm. So that could be what's going on, and it's often what's going on when kids don't want to go to school. So check out the blog post, check out the book, Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents. We've linked it in the show notes. It's also in the blog post. If you go to the blog post, there's also a cheat sheet that you can download that has those sort of big ideas about helping kids who are anxious. So again, we'll link to it, but you can Google Sarah Rosensweet and anxiety and you'll get it. I hope that was helpful, dear listener, and I hope you'll let me know after you listen to this if you were able to get any clarity on perhaps why your daughter doesn't want to go to school, and hopefully find something that I suggested that helped with her not wanting to go to school. It's something that's really common. I hear this a lot from parents about kids not wanting to go to school, and it's too bad. It's something I can't relate to because I loved school when I was a kid. I'm not sure if kids have changed or school has changed, and I know there's just, especially since the pandemic, there's been a lot of pressure on teachers, and that, the kids have been having a hard time. So I hope this helps you get back on track, and anyone who's listening, I hope this also helps you get on track, and that we have a great start to the 2023-2024 school year. And if this feels like daunting to do by yourself, don't forget that I'm here for you as a parenting coach, and my team of coaches, we're all here for you. You can find on my website, and we'll also put it in the show notes, you can find how to book a free consult, and we can talk about if some personalized, sort of loving, compassionate support might help you with the tools that you need if this hasn't been enough. So thanks for listening, everyone. And again, if you have a question for me, you can record a message on my podcast page or the link in the show notes, and when we might just answer on the podcast. Okay, see y'all next time. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.